What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 243 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo. And today we're diving into PPC, Amazon advertising. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've got a lot of questions for our guest, and joining us is Elizabeth Green, co-founder of Junglr. How are you, Elizabeth?
I am doing good. We were saying right before we went live, like, congrats. I cannot believe that many episodes. That's no small feat.
You just got to do one at a time. It'll build eventually.
Go.
I can't believe it either. I mean, we started this like 2 years ago and never would have thought that it would have got led to this. Not to mention just the connections in the industry. It's personally from my side, my own business side, my Amazon business side, it's been phenomenal just networking and learning what other people are doing, because it evolves so fast. If you're not talking with people, I mean, you're not going to know what's the next thing that comes down that you can utilize. And if you stay ahead of it, it's a huge advantage. So but before we start, I'll let everyone know you were on episode 95 with us a while ago. So if anybody wants to go back and hear sort of your backstory, how you got into the space, all of that, go check out episode 95. We had a lot of fun chatting with you and learning your story. And then we talked about some basics of advertising, basically advertising for beginners. But today we want to talk about mastering Amazon advertising, which I know I can say that I've been doing it for a decade. And I think the thing that you learn when you master Amazon advertising is that every single product, every single niche, every single launch is completely different. And you got to craft some sort of strategy around it. But yeah, so it's fun. So before we jump in, tell everybody about Junglr. Tell everybody about what you guys do, how you help other sellers manage their advertising. You do some other things as well with them. So you have the floor.
So we are an Amazon advertising agency. So full service, if you need help managing your Amazon advertising, we'll be your people. I definitely, like you, I love to make connections with others in the space, because although advertising is becoming like such a big piece, honestly, out of necessity, it's not like any of us want to have like 40% of our sales be, coming from the ad side. That's just the way the platform is migrating. Which just means that we're able to really leverage what we can do for sellers, which has been phenomenal. We're really, kind of enjoying getting into all the nuts and bolts of it, which I'm sure we'll get into more today. But we're just the Amazon ad piece.
Yeah, and it's an important, like you mentioned, it's so important. I remember when I started selling years and years ago. Number one, you almost didn't need PPC all the time. Half the products I launched would rank organically and go great. And it was much cheaper and much more simple. It was very simple sponsored product advertising, bidding on keyword. It was easy to comprehend. And I think a challenge for a lot of people that are starting today or moving their business over to e-commerce from retail, it's overwhelming. You've got sponsor product, sponsor brand, display, video ads, DSP advertising, where it goes off Amazon's platform. You got outside Amazon advertising, driving Google or Facebook or Instagram to your listings. It's so complex. And I think that's where a lot of people, they don't even know where to start half the time. It's like, I've got this much money. What do I do with it? And that's always my first question for anybody is like, if it's your first product and you're launching it and you have to run ads and you've got a certain amount of money, where do you focus that money?
I would say still sponsored products. As much as like Amazon has built out like so much sponsored display, they're going like at the speed of light, building out everything. Like we finally got access to a report that is basically like a search term report for sponsored display, which is like amazing. There's so many insights we gained out of that. Still sponsored products where it's at. I don't care how big your account is. I don't care how much you've branched out running DSP off platform. Sponsored products are still going to make up the bulk of your ad spend. They still give you the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to ranking, which is one of like the very, very unique things of the Amazon platform is the fact that you can actually influence organic ranking through running ads. There's no other ad platform that you get that traction from, and you can create that flywheel. So sponsored products still gives you the biggest bang for your buck. I honestly don't think it's an ad type thing. I think it's an inventory thing. Not that I would ever discount any of the other ad types. You know, if you're not running sponsored brands or you're not running sponsored display, like definitely once you've built up, 100% get on that. If you have someone else running it for you, then maybe, you know, we'll do it sooner rather than later. But if you're like, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, it seems so complex, focus on sponsored products. And then what I would say is focus on targeting your specific shoppers. If you have a new product, one of your questions is going to be, does this product work? Can I get sales on the platform? Is this a product that's even that buyers are going to be receptive to? That's one of the things, like everyone hopes that their product's going to be a home run, but you don't know until you launch it. And so what you want to do to put your best foot forward there is going to be trying to get your product in front of the shoppers that should really resonate with your offer. So I would still focus on sponsored products and then focus on niching down into keywords. You want to kind of find the intersection between good enough search volume that you can really test the market, but not like you're targeting cup, you know, right. And you want to like niche down into what really speaks to your target market and then run those ads. And then ads are going to give you the best, you know, the quickest data feedback on like how the market resonates with what you're offering.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about, you know, starting with sponsored product. I mean, maybe sponsor brand video when you start, if it's, you know, if the video's good and it,
yeah, if you have the creative, run it.
Yeah,
but if you're trying to focus on, you know, what should I focus on first, and you don't have the creative, you can launch without it.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be great to launch with, but
yeah, I mean, I meet with so many people that are in early stages of their product launch, and I'll talk with them, or they're coming onto Solozo and I'm helping them set things up, and they've got everything. They'll have, you know, $100 on sponsored product, $100 on sponsored brand, $100 on display. I'm like, you might want to put the majority of that, if you've got that budget, on sponsored product right now. Because I mean, and I don't even know, maybe you've got more insights on this, but clearly sponsored products, since it's keyword related, is going to drive sales on those keywords, and it's going to give you the organic boost you're looking for. But you don't really see it that much from the other ad types, right?
Yeah, so the one scenario, and a lot of these things, like Amazon is by far not going to tell you like, hey, sponsored brands or sponsored display don't really influence ranking. That's not in their best interest. They're going to tell you like, if you don't have sponsored brands, run sponsored brands and build out the account. I would agree with that. I would say like, if you're looking to mature your account and you're like only running sponsored products, you are missing out on so much visibility on the platform. So I'll just put that out there. I'm not hating on any other ad types. But the scenarios that I've seen, I just so happened to audit 3 accounts within a couple weeks span. And then every single one of those had been having conversion rate issues with their sponsored products. So naturally they had migrated, I'm talking like 80% of ad spend to sponsored brands video. And by far, all of them were having issues with gaining organic traction because they're so focused on that ad type. Now, I don't really necessarily think it's a sponsor brand doesn't give you the biggest bang for the buck, like when it comes to like clicks and actual conversions. I have a feeling it's more due to the ad inventory available. For instance, there's so many ad spots on page 1 for sponsored products. So you got 3 at the top, middle, bottom, they look organic, and like those are the top spots, versus like if you have a video ad or if you have like a sponsored brand headline, you got 1 spot up at the top. As soon as they scroll down, or maybe, you know, say even 10% of the time, you don't win that like first page placement for the video ads. That's 10% of shoppers you're never going to see, versus if you 10% of the time don't win the top spot on a sponsored product ad, you're still showing up maybe spot 3. You're still in the running. You're still getting that visibility. So I have a feeling it has more to do with that aspect. And that's a personal theory. And this personal theory is based off of like me auditing a couple accounts and seeing things. So please don't quote me. don't go to Amazon and say like sponsored brands don't work for ranking. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is what I've observed. So if you're looking for ranking, I think in this scenario, it makes sense to put your most of your ad dollars towards sponsored products.
Yeah, but I think the big point of what you said there is that you had data. I mean, they tried it, they tested it, and that's part of the game. I mean, for us, for some, if it was a completely different product, maybe it was a product that nobody knew they needed. Let's say a new invention, something that had to be explained. Maybe the video ad is better than sponsored product if you had the budget to do those things. And that's where I think on your website, I was watching your introductory video on your website.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned, if you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different strategies. And it's so true. It's just, but I think the overall theme is test, analyze the data, and then revisit it. Do we need to, is this working? Is it not? And that's the name of the game. And that's why, you really have to pay attention to ads. Advertising on Amazon is 100% not a set it and forget it type operation.
Unfortunately not. I wish.
I know. Yeah, you and me both. It's definitely not. I mean, it just has to be constantly tested and constantly test the different types. And as your product matures and as your brand gets more recognition, that's where sponsored brand can be very good. Display for retargeting, that can be really good, or category targeting. But I feel like those are more like top of funnel as opposed to.
I would say sponsor display product targeting is still going to work really well. There has been some updates to sponsor display product targeting categories. That's nuanced. There's some really interesting targeting. I don't know how deep we want to get into the weeds with like how everything works. But there's some interesting updates that have come there. But I still think, sponsor display product targeting works phenomenal. It's very easy to migrate over like what is working in sponsored product ads. You can take those ASINs and plug them into a sponsored display campaign, and I think run that very well. And I still think, again, sponsored product, just because of volume, like you can get back so much data volume relatively quickly. And so again, you can take what's working in sponsored products and you can plug that into your sponsored brands, and it's a very natural migration, and you're doing it based off of data you've already accumulated. And we've seen that work very well.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to hit you with some questions I get all the time from people. We'll start with variations. I hear this all the time. I've got red, yellow, green, blue variation of product X. How do I organize that? Do I advertise all of them? Do I put them all in the same campaign, different ad groups? Do I run separate campaigns for each one of them? What is your thought process on that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. To me, this one's pros and cons. Everything goes back to pros and cons. The one nuance with variation listings is you get one organic spot, you get one ad spot. You can't have like all your variations showing up like all over the page. So you advertising those variations in like different spots or like taking the same keyword and targeting, that's really for just clean data. It's not necessarily for like you showing up more spots. So this is my theory on it, and this is how I do it. I know some really good people who split out each variation into its own thing. First off, I would say, how much data do you have? If you have like a clear winner, if you have like something that works the best, like there's no shame in like advertising that variation and just allowing that to act as a funnel towards your other variations. I'm a big fan of like always putting your best foot forward. So if you have the data to do it, which one works best, I would just run with the clear winners. Sometimes you don't have clear winners, or sometimes, which is something that we deal with often, is you have listings that have like a bajillion different variations that are constantly in and out of stock. This comes specifically to clothing. And so one thing that will happen if you're only advertising your best-selling variation, if that variation goes out of stock, your ads shut down. So you have to navigate
Mm.
that. So in these cases, you might run things in tandem, or you might group variations into a singular campaign. So the issue with grouping variations is, again, it's for the data feedback, because in a search term report, the lowest level you can get of granularity is knowing that a search term was attributed to a keyword within an ad group. So you can imagine if you only have one product in that ad group, then you know that this keyword converted for this one product. So there's a lot of people who like to run it very clean that way and only ever put one variations. Again, you can deal with stock fluctuations, and then all of a sudden you're scrambling to like add all the other variations in, and these ones are untested, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a mess. So we group things. That's the way we do it, because the other thing is, if you're talking like keyword data and getting data feedback, again, you only get one ad spot per product. So say you're advertising on Metal Cup and you got the blue one and you got the red one. Say the blue and you have them both split into their separate campaigns, separate ad groups, everything's all clean, cool. Well, you have like that one product show up on Metal Cup and this one got like 5 clicks, and then this one showed up and this one got 2 clicks. Accumulatively, that might be enough clicks on that one product to make some sort of data determination on if if this keyword works. If it doesn't, maybe we can start migrating bids in a way that would make sense based on what data feedback we're getting. Versus if these are, it's like separate and this one's getting 5 clicks, this one getting 2, like 2 clicks is not significant enough for me to do anything. So what our personal preference is to combine them. That way we combine all the clicks. Now that's if you have variations that are relatively the same and you're going off of keywords that pretty much work for all of your variations. So do take that. And like there are certain variation listings sometimes in like home decor where like they're very obvious as difference in keywords. Like we should not be including these. If you have the different variations that go to like completely separate keywords, don't do that. Like put the keywords. So that's like your general keywords. And then we have your variation specific keywords. Now I will be frank, this is very painful to do. And there's no way to like automate this. I wish there was. We have systems that make it a little bit easier for us, but there's no like, yay, this is super easy. If you go and you see a keyword, like again, Metal Cup, if you have a blue and a red one and you see red Metal Cup and you see blue Metal Cup, again, you only get one ad spot per search. Mm-hmm. So if someone is typing in red Metal Cup, as a shopper on Amazon who likes to often search for clothing or other things that I have very, very specific ideas of what I'm looking for, one of the things on the Amazon platform is actually it's quite annoying. It doesn't always pull up the exact, like you like retype the same thing 20 different times. You're like, I'm looking for this. I know this is on the platform. Like, show me the blue Metal Cup with a handle and a straw. Like, please, this is what I want to buy. So if you have that exact product and you can identify keywords that very obviously are looking for that exact product, why would you not make sure that that is the product that's going to show up on the search? Because if someone's been looking all over for the blue Metal Cup with the straw and the handle, and you can say, hey, look, I got what you need, like you're just going to naturally get much better click-through rates, much better conversions. It's going to work out. Again, building out that funnel is tedious.
Sure.
Let's be honest. But if you have the time and you are willing to put in the work, you're going to get the best results that way.
So you're taking like the generic main keywords that are relevant to every variation, Metal Cup. And that's where you've got all you've got the winner. The winner is in that campaign, but you're segmenting like anything that has blue in it or something like that for that one specific ASIN, which makes sense. Yeah, that is a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome to advertising on Amazon. And that's just something as simple as advertising variations. There's nuances in it, but yeah, I mean, if I search for blue Metal Cup and your red one popped up because it's got every keyword associated with it in that campaign, how am I supposed to know there's I guess there's tricks you could do, like put like a blue and a red dot or something on the main.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that can appeal, but again, the cleaner, the easier you can make it for the shopper, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. And there's going to end up being a lot of keywords around blue Metal Cup. Like you said, with a handle, with a straw, every which way they can possibly do it. So that's a part of just building out those funnels and making sure that you have it in there. Another thing about, and talking about when you're starting to build it out, I know that there's pros and cons to both of these as well, but the difference between maybe just at the beginning launching an auto campaign just to see what comes back, versus really taking your time to do a ton of keyword research and creating a manual campaign, with the keywords you're pretty sure are very targeted towards your product. If you're doing a product launch, are you doing a combination of those, or is one preferable? What are the pros and cons to just letting Amazon give you the data at first? Just let's run an auto and let's start harvesting out of that as there's conversions.
Yeah, I would say the main, maybe the only pro is it's easy to do the auto approach.
Yep.
I mean, let's be honest. Like you set it up, it runs, you get the data back, and like if you have a product that you want to launch slowly, or if you just like, I just need to get this up, I don't have time, autos are going to be better than nothing. We still run autos. No shame on autos. Everybody, if you completely like stopped everything, you're only doing exact and you don't have an auto, like go run a little bit auto. Like your future self will thank you. But if you can put in the work and the time, I 100% recommend keyword research. And I always tell brands, do not discount your intuition that you've gained through product research. Like somebody did product research on this. Somebody scouted the market. Somebody figured out this is what people are looking for. People want this variation. People want this. Like, I mean, if you're going to launch any product, you're really digging into that product research. So don't discount like all the knowledge you've gained through doing that. It's just you need to carry over that knowledge into the keyword research now.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Again, test. You
Yeah.
got to test that'll be the ongoing theme, I think, for this. Okay, the other question I get a lot of time is top of search placement percentage. I test this out all the time with my products. I mean, I use top of search if I'm like middle of page one or bottom of page one for a certain keyword, and I know I can do that. But what I find out a lot of times is even with a higher bid, my ACoS is lower when I do top of search, because I'm assuming the conversion rate is a lot better at top of search. So at what point do you implement that top of search into your strategy? And do you just test that out all the time?
Yeah, so we do test it. In our agency, we kind of see top of search as like a bonus on top of good bid management, is what I would say. There are certain strategies out there that are kind of interesting to test, but I don't consider them like core strategies in an account, like really high top of search, low bids. There's some interesting things out there. I haven't seen that ever work 100% all the time. So for us, it's not like a core strategy. It's like, hey, we want to test something extra for this account, and we might do that. So for me, it's good bid management, at least getting on the page somewhere, because I haven't seen it work all the time where people put like lower bids and really high top of search to kind of push that. So what we prefer to do is get like really at least some good traction, and some good, at least we have an idea of like how we convert and like a good bid that like gets us in the ballpark. And then what we'll do is we'll layer on that top of search placement. And we'll also layer on product pages. Actually, if you read the documentation on product page placement, that actually gets you to show up, like when you're checking out of the cart, and there's like other products. Pretty sure last time I read the documentation, you actually get that product pages. That's a placement too, which is kind of interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I read it. I was like, what? If you go into the placement tab, there's more information. I'm pretty sure that's in there as well. So it's actually helpful to read documentation. You'll find out some interesting. Yeah. But yeah, so for us, it's like it's a layering on thing. And the other thing that you have to factor in for people who like put like really high top of search placements, I tell my team all the time, like Amazon in those scenarios, their goal when you put a placement percentage is they just say like, hey, our goal is to get this placement percentage. They are completely, they don't care about what the actual performance is. They just care, can you get the placement? So it's on you to take into account, like, is this a performance that I'm okay with at this? And some, like, you're very right. Top of search does have a much higher conversion rate. And that's something, like, if you were wondering about it, you can go into the placement tab and you can, like, you can calculate your conversion rate at top of search and do the math and say, oh my goodness, at this conversion rate, I can afford a higher bid. And then at that point, I think it makes sense to play with placements. But I would just say it would be placements would be something that I would layer on top of something I know can do well. Not something that I would like hyper focus on, because again, it's completely ignorant of any like performance numbers that you're looking to hit.
Mm-hmm. Similar to that, and this is another question I get all the time, is the Amazon bidding strategy, like dynamic up, down, down only, fixed. Curious to hear your thoughts on performance of each of those. For me, I have not found dynamic up, down to ever work really well for me at all. It's a good way to burn money.
Yes.
I feel like, but I mean, it sounds like your thoughts are the same on this. Is there a scenario to use it?
So I've seen some interesting strategies with like lower bids and dynamic up and down bidding. Again, it's one of those, I think it's interesting to test in certain scenarios. So like if you're really familiar with the platform, if you know how it works, I think it can be maybe interesting. And again, in things that are working really well. There's another one that we sort of kind of tested. We haven't tested it extensively. There's actually a new bidding strategy where it's like performance based that I think could be interesting. Time will really tell. For that, you have to have a campaign running with like 30 orders within 30-day time frame, and then you can give Amazon like a ROAS target, and according to the documentation, they'll look to maximize your amount of sales within the ROAS target. However, the default input will be like your average for the last 30 days. And if you put it like too many points below, it'll say like, hey, we think you're going to decrease your orders if you like hit too low of a ROAS, which tells you like people going after super low ACoS, you're probably going to sacrifice sales for that. So our default is mostly dynamic down only. We've seen that work very well. If we're going after ranking and you need visibility, if you're having issues with visibility, fixed bidding is going to work very well. If you have ranking campaigns, and again, you want to maintain that visibility factor, I would say fixed bids. And then dynamic up and down. Again, if you look at the documentation, it's saying we're going to optimize for conversions, but they're not taking into account your performance metrics at all. They're simply saying, can we get the conversion? That's all they're after, is the conversion. What that conversion results to in profitability, that's not even in the equation. So that's normally why you see those numbers the way they are.
Yes, I would completely agree. Okay, other scenarios. I mean, there's so many. We've covered the variations, of course, and dynamic up, down, and top of search. Again, over and over again, it's test, test, test. What about going into a very competitive, saturated niche, expensive cost per clicks? Let's just say supplements, something like that. Your fun one. So I'm coming to you, and I've got my brand new amazing vitamin C.
Vitamin C zero. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, which it's like number one. I mean, I have this conversation with people all the time. It's like, okay, you got to be prepared. I mean, this is not something that you're just going to turn on and it's going to be profitable. There's no chance. You got to think about your longer strategy. But also, if you're managing it, you got to try to spend their budget in the wisest way possible. Yes. We don't need to use vitamin C because that's just so tricky. But some supplement, it's got a main keyword that's going to be a $20 click, something like. I mean, it's going to be absurd. How do you attack that?
That's a rough one. So it's actually easier if somebody's coming to you with past performance, like if they've tried to run anything at all, because one thing I'm going to say is like, what's your conversion rate? Mm-hmm. Like if you're coming to me in a very saturated category, and you have a conversion rate of like 3%, and we're looking at like the category average, and we're going like, this is 15%, I'm just going to tell you, fix your conversion rate. Now, that's not something that's in my wheelhouse. I mean, I have good people I can refer you to, but as far as like, something is disconnecting between your target market and your offer. So those two things 100% have to be absolutely aligned. If you are going to go into a very competitive category, you need to be able to compete. Now, I think one of the tricky things among just the astronomically insane cost per clicks in like supplements is the fact that reviews matter. So like, how much do reviews matter in your category? Like if you're selling a spoon, it's a spoon. Someone's like, it's a spoon, it scoops, it doesn't break, I'm good. Like that's all I need to know. Versus like if you're selling like skincare, supplements, other things, people want to know, is this actually going to work for me? That's what people want to know. Like, is your product what I'm looking for? Is it going to give me the results I want? And reviews are a huge way to prove that out. So again, you have to think long term, big picture, like how important are reviews after you gain that momentum with the reviews. Maybe we can repeat, we can go through and compete. And then most times my advice is like, hey, we're coming into this market, we can come in hot, we're not competing with the big boys. There's a reason they're up there. And that's going to be a good thing when you get up there, because some little scrappy guy is not going to come in, with just a big ad budget and blow you out of something you've took months to like scrape your way to the top. So that's actually can work in your favor once you get there. But just recognize that you probably want to come in somewhere, I would say mid-market-ish. I like to see if there's like some sort of differentiation or a way that we can like push into the market. So for instance, if we're talking like vitamin C, is it a chewable? Is it a powder? Is it a capsule? Like there are like those specific sub-markets in anything. And in some ways, it's almost easier in high volume spaces because it's like monkeys on a keyboard. Like the more people typing, the more variations you're going to get. So you often get like those keywords that you want something with good enough search volume for you to be able to actually get in front of an audience. But ideally, it doesn't always work out that way, but ideally you can find something with decent enough search volume. You're not paying like the $20 cost per click. And then the goal there is to see, can we gain momentum in this space in the market? That's the goal. Yep. If you can, great, double down. Like double down. So the goal is to branch out, find the places you work. Once you find them, go hard, double down, gain that ranking. And then ideally what happens when you gain that ranking, you actually have a volume of organic sales. So you're not completely like backwards funding everything, because the hard thing about going after like the top keywords is one, again, you got to have the conversion rates to be able to compete on those keywords because the big boys are there for a reason. But then two, like the amount of ad dollars you have to spend and just continuously go backwards to even gain any momentum on that placement is going to be like astronomical. It's going to take months. It's going to hurt. And then the traction you're going to see is going to be very slow in coming, where if you can find those places where at least you can gain some initial wins in the beginning, then at least you can carry those wins into kind of the bigger battles.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I would tell somebody is you got to start way outside the main keyword, and the most laser focused into whatever your differentiator is. Like you said, is it a powder? Is it a pill? Is it a liquid? And then you can extrapolate off of that as well. But yeah, running an auto campaign is going to kill you on something like that. You'd be out of money really quick. And I think that's a frustration for a lot of people because, I pick on supplements because it's an easy target. It's super competitive, but almost everything is getting to that, not to that degree, but there's, unless you're a super niched out product, there's, there's going to be a lot of similar products to you. I'm currently, I had an opportunity to start selling portable air conditioning units. And it's there's a lot of challenges with that. They're heavy. How do you do them? But it's also challenging because I'm going up against very big names, very well-known names, high reviews. And it's a challenge trying to figure out which way to target, which angle to come at in a market like that. So I'm still very deep in testing, figuring out what to do.
Yeah,
Because it's
definitely.
there's a lot. I mean, it can be challenging.
It can be. One other thing you might explore in competitive markets, and again, it can be difficult because the big players have things. We've seen actually product targeting. So, for instance, like one of our products that we launched for a client recently, he had a very specific, like we shared the keyword list with him ahead of time. He was asking, he was like, oh yeah, no, this specific keyword space, like this is actually the target market I have. So we like actually went hard after that keyword. And one of the things we did is we went and we looked at all of the competitors that were ranking on that page that, you know, we thought he could compete with, and then we scraped those and retargeted them. So we, for funny enough, he didn't actually convert well on the keyword we were targeting, but he was converting very, very well on a lot of the ASINs. And funny enough, we ended up getting an Amazon Choice Badge for that particular search, even though the keyword we were targeting didn't convert well, but the product targeting that were associated with that actually worked really well. So for that, I was like, oh, okay, because they're not like we were being very, very targeted in the beginning, so it was a good test knowing that, you know, we weren't branching out, we weren't running like a whole bunch of browser things because it was a very targeted launch. So I've seen product targeting can work well. Again, if you're competing against big players, like you still have to convert on their pages, so that's a factor.
But if there's an advantage,
market, yeah.
if it's cheaper or looks better, or if there's some advantage, that's interesting. So you're saying that when you did the product targeting, you were getting, so somebody would search that main keyword, they'd click on your competitor, go to the detail page, see yours, buy it. Amazon was then crediting you at the Amazon's Choice Badge for the keyword that started the search?
That's what it seemed like. Like I said, I mean, it's one of those, it's like you have these scenarios that you run and you go, huh,
Yeah.
okay, you know, but again, the targeting we were running was very specific. We were running only an exact match, and we were targeting very like hyper specific keywords that we thought we could compete on. And then this one, we weren't running a lot of additional product targeting, but we recognized this as like a really good way for us to again differentiate in the market. So we had scraped ASINs off of that keyword. And yes, so we ended up getting the Amazon Choice Badge for that particular search when, again, the keyword in an exact match wasn't performing. The conversion rates weren't all that great. So sometimes you just convert better on product pages.
Yeah. Interesting. Adding that to my test.
Yeah.
I've been, and I'm
Let me know
assuming,
how it goes.
yeah, I will. I'm assuming when you did that, though, if there was a clear competitive advantage from the competitor, you weren't targeting those, right? Were you targeting anybody?
Yeah,
on page one?
I think we did get a little bit more selective with what we chose to target. And honestly, I think if you want to just go straight page one and then target those, I think that works. The issue when you go through and you just scrape a whole page is like some of those will work, some of those won't. So then how much ad budget are you cool with like losing out on? Because you just have like, what is it, 90 different variations. It's 90
Right.
if you're only paying like $1 a click, one click, it's $90. So I mean, you have to make those calls.
We had a question come in related to this from Phelan. Would you start with a super tight category targeting or choose your own batch of ASINs in this situation? So I guess he's asking, would you just do category targeting, or would you actually do like what you were talking about, actually picking the ASINs you want to target?
I would say if you're looking to specifically gain momentum on a play, just because that's all I can tell you is that that's what we did. We chose a specific batch of ASINs on a specific keyword, and those are the results we've seen. I'm not saying you can replicate it. I'm not saying it's going to happen again, but my gut feeling would be that was helpful to running that strategy. And so I would say pick a large batch of ASINs. Categories can be great, but again, me talking about like scraping the entire page on like Amazon, and then retargeting those. Like that's a lot of ASINs to target. If you want to talk about branching out and targeting an entire category, like that's even bigger. So look at your, what you can afford to spend. For super broad targeting, I'm not a huge fan of aggressively scaling it, meaning like huge bids mostly. Sometimes if they're working really well, like, hey, put a large budget, but I don't like super aggressively scaling it, especially for things like broads, autos, categories where Amazon has so much control over the targeting. Because what we've seen, I've seen this so many times, is you'll go into Q4, those will work. Categories, auto, everything is humming, your conversion rate's banging, and you're just like, heck yes, more and more and more bids. Let's get these sales. And then you hit past Christmas, and Amazon's still going, hey, your conversion rate's great. Let's keep hitting this with these bids. And your conversion rate is just not there. And all of a sudden, you just see that massive spike. And because you've been so reliant on broad targeting to really like get the juice for you in your account, and like everything else, maybe because you've been so targeted, just doesn't have the same performance on it. And you can pull those accounts out of a tailspin. It is gnarly. So if you can, just be aware of that when you're doing bid adjustments. Be aware of how broad your targeting is. Be aware of how much control you're handing over to Amazon, and just look at like ratios in your account and like, okay, how much do I have a handle? How much am I just letting them steer the ship? At least keep a decent handle on the tail.
Well, thanks, Thielen, for the question. And that leads me right into, we can make this the last main question here, but you get differences of opinions on this. But when you're talking about, what I would consider like a research campaign, like a broad and auto and the things you're talking about, where you're giving Amazon control over that, as you're harvesting keywords out of that and moving them, do you, a lot of people say they run the broad, phrase, and auto and exact for the same keywords all the time. They'll claim that this is great, it's working good. But if you harvest them and, if you get it to your exact match and it's negated everywhere else, pros and cons on that, how would you structure things? Are you trying to get your harvest all the way to exact match and then make sure that that's where it's triggering off of and nowhere else? Or do you run a lot of things? Good.
So I would say, and I have like a horror story on this.
Okay.
Not a horror story. That's me being super dramatic. So what I've seen is that broad match and phrase match can get like different performance numbers. Like sometimes you'll get these same placements in a phrase match and you're like shoving it in an exact match. You're like, why can I not replicate performance? It's the same freaking search term at the same freaking bid. Like, what is going on? So I'm a fan of, even though I get the logic, trust me, I 100% get the logic. Like if everything was as clean as we would like it to be, I would say like 100%. Run everything super targeted and exact match, and then like let's make sure that those are triggering so we can get very incremental with what we're bidding on. Like logic makes sense. The way it plays out in accounts doesn't always look as beautiful as what we would like the results to be. So for instance, I had a client I took on that had broad match, mostly broad match running in his accounts. We're like, okay, awesome. Like there's so much we can do. We can get more targeted. There was the main keyword in a broad match and it was doing well, but it was pulling like a bajillion different search terms that were completely irrelevant. Like it was like playing whack-a-mole with these search terms. Like this is ridiculous. Like I need to clear out this waste, even though it's working well, like just total keyword ACOS wise. Like let's fix this. Let's get in an exact match. Could not get exact match to work. Could not freaking get the exact match to work. It was ridiculous. Put it in the same ad group. Like maybe we'll make another ad group inside the same campaign, get campaign performance. Nope, nothing. And I finally was like, you know what? Let me like put this keyword as a negative in the broad, and we're gonna force it. We're gonna force it. Not good. Performance was not good. And I'm like, you know what? If it ain't broke, I'll just play whack-a-mole with search terms. So, yeah. I mean, through that, I'm kind of like, I've seen enough instances of that to say, I do believe if you're going after ranking, exact match is where it's at because you can get so controlled with what you're doing. I don't believe in like aggressively scaling broader match types. That being said, I'm okay with letting them run and get me sales at a lower cost per click.
Yeah, and see, I want to be able to. I would love, like you said, to be able to. I mean, in a perfect world, you get everything to exact match. You got all the bids optimized perfectly. There's no commingled data sets. It's not coming out of the broad.
Yeah.
It's coming out of this, and man, you can optimize it. But I've seen that scenario often. The same thing you're talking about. Like, why does the same term with the same bid not work in a different match type? And I don't even nobody knows the algorithm, obviously, that Amazon's running, but there's got to be some logic behind why that's the case. We just don't know it. But
and it could go back to maybe there's some machine learning on the back end, who knows? I just know what I know, what I've seen. So I work with it.
That's right. And that's what everyone needs to do. That's the overarching theme of this conversation is you really have to test, you have to explore, and you have to make the necessary adjustments. Just like you're talking about. If the broad match is performing way better, you just got to spend time cleaning up the search terms. It's going to take time, but that's what you have to do because you have the data to prove it. It's performing better. So. Elizabeth, this has been fun. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface, but we've definitely provided, you've provided a lot of value to everyone listening, food for thought for everyone out there. I'm also sure that people are listening and they're like, I would like to work with Elizabeth. She's definitely digging into the weeds and everything and making sure that we get the best performance possible. So why don't you let everyone know how they can, obviously you put a lot of content out too, let them know how they can find your content and also how can they contact you to start working with you if they would like to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Those were some really good, harder questions, but great. It's really good. So if you want to just hear content, I put the most out on LinkedIn. So if you want to go and follow me there, and then if you're interested in working with us, of course, we'd love to talk. That best place would be the website, which is junglr.com, junglr.com. Form at the bottom, you actually get to talk to me. I'm still doing intakes, so we'll see, how we can help.
Awesome. Well, I encourage everyone to do that. Definitely go take a look at the content Elizabeth puts out. It's very educational, will help you out. I learned some things today, so thank you, Elizabeth. And thanks for answering some more detailed questions. I know there's a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of it is more just setting up your ad structures, best practices. But there's so many nuances. I mean, there's so many nuances.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes it's nice to hear what other people have done to try to navigate those. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. If you like content like this, make sure you're subscribing to the podcast. You can also see all the live streams of these episodes on Solozo's social media channels. So Solozo's Facebook page, LinkedIn, YouTube, they're all there. On YouTube, you can see every past episode we've done. And additionally, if you're managing your ads right now, if you've comfortable with your strategy, but you'd like to take a lot of that work and effort off of your plate, at Solozo, we have a platform that can help fully optimize and automate your strategy, your PPC strategy. So I'd love to have a chance to share with you the platform. You can go to solozo.com. You can schedule a demo. You'll talk to me, and we'll talk anything Amazon, and I can also show you how Solozo can help optimize your advertising for you. All right, everybody, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks, Elizabeth, for joining. We'll see you all next time.